Take a moment and think what will happen if there's power outage in UAE for 5 minutes. Because people will be trapped in elevators, people will be trapped underground. The government of UAE cannot afford 1 minute electricity outage. They cannot afford it. It's expensive. As a matter of fact, heads will roll. And I say these are the conversations that people have been talking about, where a lot of nations are investing in baskets of energy, not just from one source. And the most beautiful thing on earth is that God has favored us with all sorts of energy. Wind, we have it. Sunlight, we have it. Water, we have it. Gas, we have it. So, what's the problem?
Human beings.
This is SOUQ business landscape.
Nigeria's famed Detty December festive season was a bit dampened by severe power outages. Nationwide, though, following one of the country's worst electricity supply crunches in 2025, traditionally marked by lavish parties and homecoming events, people all over the world, they come down home. Now, this particular year, this celebration have been curtailed as residents and event organizers grapple with blackout. Now, according to reports, the crisis was triggered by the explosion at the Escravos Lagos gas pipeline in Delta State, a key infrastructure supplying gas to power generating stations. Not only Detty December was affected, a lot of business activities were also affected. A lot of homes had to depend on generator. We were looking at 5,320 something megawatts. That wasn't enough. Then it had to go down to about 3,000 megawatts. Now that particular repairs has happened as of 2 days ago. That's the 27th. They came out to say, okay, we've been able to repair and gas is coming back online. How are we going to deal with this issue of information? Because this could have gone a long way to make people prepare and make alternatives.
Well, I think it's absolutely very unfortunate that in this age and time, we're still struggling to grapple with just the common issue of electricity. You know, I remember my wife asking me some 2 days ago, is this how it happens everywhere? And I said, I don't know everywhere except in Nigeria. And it's not funny. In 2011, United Arab Emirates were signing a contract for solar energy. And as at that time, you don't see a blink of light because light was constant and everything was working. And I remember asking one of their staff at the School of Strategic Studies, why will they be committing so much money on this investment? And he told me, take a moment and think what will happen if there's power outage in UAE for 5 minutes. Because people will be trapped in elevators, people will be trapped underground. And so the government of UAE cannot afford 1 minute electricity outage. They cannot afford it. It's expensive. As a matter of fact, heads will roll. And I say these are the conversations that people have been talking about, where a lot of nations are investing in baskets of energy, not just from one source. And the most beautiful thing on earth is that God has favored us with all sorts of energy. Wind, we have it. Sunlight, we have it. Water, we have it. Gas, we have it. So, what's the problem?
Human beings.
And I think those human beings need some replacement. And these are really things that people must think about. Look at it. Almost every other country in the world, they don't have the kind of privilege and opportunities that we have. And if we can just sit down to think and make things work, it will just not be nice. And I think that is where we need to broaden our search, so that if there are things we cannot do and we have people who can do it, we should not be ashamed to call for help. We should not be ashamed to call for help. And there are a lot of people who have conquered these power issues.
Should we declare a state of emergency on power?
It's not just a state of emergency. We should just allow the power and call India that has made so much significant stride in power generation to come help us, or even the United Arab Emirates or Qatar to come and help us.
Why didn't you go to the West?
Well, because of course there are cheaper options anyway.
Okay.
So there are cheaper options. So these are for me what it is, that we should not be ashamed to call for help where we need help. And we cannot continue to talk about something blew, something did not blow, and therefore there's no light.
Okay. Now, let's go to something blew, something did not blow. Oyinpre, initially we're distributing about 5,300 and something megawatts. That's before this particular incident. That particular amount is not 10% of our need. Then we had to go down to about 3,000 to 3,002 in this period. The issue and the reason given was that there was an explosion caused by vandalism. Do you buy that? And how can we curb that?
Well, when the House of Representatives, point an accusing finger to the electricity distribution companies that they have not, their actions, has not demonstrated that they have actually done or kept to the promises that they made 13 years ago when this industry was, deregulated. So they were being asked, you have not, so what's the problem there? And now that is the excuse they gave. They said, look, the gas line, is it the Warri Escravos Lagos pipeline, blew up, and they were even making allusions to what Doc mentioned, gas, that there was insufficient gas.
They couldn't supply to the thermal station.
They could not, but we've been hearing that story time and again. So when are we going to stop it? When can we nip in the bud? When can we say, okay, this is actually the problem? With the abundance of gas that we have, how can we fix this problem so that power will become stable? That is the question we should be asking ourselves. Now, I don't want to go ahead of myself, so I'm not going to make reference to the second story. And we seem to, there's this massive public-private partnership that we should, use as a vehicle to achieving power. Because if we cannot achieve power, sometimes I wonder what our relationship with some of these powers are, including China.
Can we get up to the President Tinubu is looking for $1 trillion industry, $1 trillion economy, and we are working towards that without power? Is it possible? No.
Of course, it's not going to be possible. Remember, time and again, I've made it clear on this table that if we are looking at achieving industrialization, we are working towards industrialization. We want to be an industrialized economy because that is actually what's going to make us a manufacturing hub, a producing company who produce not only for Nigerians, but also for the African market. That's actually what is going to make us, balloon as an economy, to blow up as an economy. But we have not been giving sufficient attention to power. I think we are becoming too relaxed on the fact that manufacturing hubs, factories, and other entities that are manufacturing, the few manufacturing hubs we have in the country are relying excessively on alternative power source. And we are not putting into consideration that these items that have been manufactured in the country, the prices would have been lower if we've been having ease, if we've been having power straight from the nation, and we are not, hell-bent or reliant on alternative power source. Yes, okay. And that in itself is defeating the economic blueprint and the economic plan, the SMEs, the loans and the grants that we advance to them. How much of those amounts is being taken away by power?
Okay.
It's huge.
Okay. I 100% agree with you. Now, Doc, let's push some tables. Before the administration of Obasanjo left, they came up with discos that went private. And some individuals got it, even though they bear local government or state names. Now, we've had issues over time with these distribution companies, even government coming to bail them out. Then, mid this year, Enugu state government said, no, we'll price our electricity differently. This is how much our people will pay. Then we now started seeing the introduction of state electricity boards. Lagos State just formed theirs and is gradually coming up. Do you see ability of states taking over what discos used to do? And also transmission? Or will it make any significant impact?
Well, I think it's actually, to make the data straight, is the government of Goodluck Jonathan that sold
the discos, the distribution companies.
Yes, we moved from NEMPA. Obasanjo sold it from NEMPA to PHCN.
Yes.
And then, of course, the PHCN got a very weird name at that time. You see, NEMPA used to be NEMPA, never expect power always.
That was the insulting name they gave.
So, yeah, of course, because, you see, it tells you how bad this situation had been. So, we came to have a PHCN and said they were holding the power.
Holding Company of Nigeria.
So, and nobody got power. So we decided to move and said, okay, let's privatize it. And Goodluck Jonathan gave his opportunity out to some people, discos. And you heard about a number of them that were licensed. And some of them had now become bankrupt. Benin is trying to do resuscitation on Ibadan, had a lot of issues with banks and the rest of it, and so taking about receivership manager. Kaduna Disco had issues, and a lot of it, all of them having issues. And what was at the foundation was the fact that the privatization was not done transparently. And we didn't give these things to people who had the competence to run power. All the people who came to bid for Disco have never tested supplying power to anybody anywhere in the world. So that was the weird things to do. So if you say, I want to privatize, you are going to give your very crucial national asset to somebody. You give it to somebody who had the competence to manage it. Nigerian energy has been one source since independence. And in short, there was actually a constitutional provision that was protecting them from being even sued. So there is nobody in Nigeria as of today who had that competence to actually distribute electricity. So what we just did, we did a name change and handed over this thing to some people, which is something that is very, very common in Africa. Like my friend told me recently, and he said that there was a case that happened some time ago in Uganda, and they have to give one certain lady the electricity company, and then, of course, it became very worse because it was like settlement. And I think these are the things that we must run away from in Africa. But majorly speaking, and I remember that it was in 2019 election debate that Atiku regretted that one of the big things that happened to them was the fact that they were not able to fix Nigerian energy, even after they had expended over $6 billion to fix that energy. Now, the aftermath of the Mambila project, power project, the sour taste is in our mouth, still from that same regime of Olusegun Obasanjo. Of course, we know that one of his principal ministers is still under trial, and the regime denying that they didn't know anything about all the contracting that was going on in Mambila. These are the weird things that had happened to us, that we have state resource even handed over to these people. So Jonathan even borrowed their money to kickstart the project. The first thing that these people did when they took over the PHCN was to sell off all the assets. If you remember, you know that every local government you go to, there was a NEPA building. You will have regional building, you will have state building. All of those assets were inherited. These people sold off those assets. They have not invested 1 naira on a new transformer. They have not bought a new pole. Not to talk about cabling. Because as we speak, anybody who wants lights in their house, we buy the transformer, we buy the pole, we buy the cable, and then give money to the so-called disco to come and connect them.
But once that is done, the property is not yours.
And It's quite weird. I remember in 2022, I was having a conversation with the House Committee on Power, and I said, what's happening? I didn't know service level agreement signed by government with this disco. And it became so confusing. Who should enforce that agreement? Whether it's the BPE that sold it should enforce it, or whether it's the Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Agency that should enforce it, or was going to be the House Committee. That's completely weird. And that tells you the fact that government must demonstrate enough courage to tackle some of the issues that are befalling us as a country, that we can call spade a spade. And I think that was what the president tried to do when he decided to unbundle electricity.
Okay.
That regulations can't be centered in Abuja alone. That states cannot be empowered and back up with an act of parliament that states now in Nigeria can decide to produce electricity for themselves. You don't forget that the antecedent of the president, when, of course, he became the governor of Lagos State during the start of this republic, and he decided to bring in Aaron to give electricity to Lagos.
That did not work.
And Abuja fought it.
Stands
to a standstill.
Okay, sir, let's look at this. With the introduction of these state electricity boards coming up to distribution, because they are making direct autonomy on distribution, do you see them having a direct conflict with the discos?
You see, there's going to be definitely conflicts, because you have to look at it. Who will disco take instructions and directive from? Will be from NERC, which is centered in Abuja. The only solution is that states start to create their own alternative power source that necessarily may not need to be connected to the national grid.
But how would they transmit?
Well, that's simple. We're already used to buying cables.
So we
are used to buying cables. In this case, we don't even need to buy pole. We can lay the cables underground. And so people who don't want this electricity can have alternative. How are we dealing with the telephony issue? A company here laid an undersea cable to provide service because we want to do business. So if you get people who are competent and they want to invest in that sector, they will put money down, they will get their money back, because what Nigeria needs is constant electricity. And if you can guarantee that, you have solved 50% of our problem. So it is not about whether the transmission is not a problem, because anybody who wants to do business can focus on their own little area, as we are today here in Lagos. Lagos is having its own independent power projects, even within what we're talking about. So Lagos IPP till tomorrow is still working. All government infrastructure in Lagos State are powered by Lagos IPP.
Scaling is an issue.
Yeah, it can be scaled. If you can do that, you can scale it. If all the general hospitals that are in Lagos and all the health centers that are in the 57 SCDAs all have access to this, what scaling do you need anymore? They only just extend it to Ogun State and sell electricity to Ogun State. And so if DISCO refuses to reform itself, just like Nigeria, they can also get out of business.
Okay. So why they are getting out of business? Priya, I need to talk about this. We saw the case of geometries. It took well over 15 to 20 years for that project to work, because some people stood as walls of Gibraltar, saying this is not going to work because it's going to affect their business. How can we start breaking them? And just like Nitel, like Doc said, they will fizzle out.
Federal government has empowered the state to do this on their own. What I actually wanted to say is that the Niger Delta, the southern part of the country, where all the oil producing parts of the country, where we have this gas domiciled, we are not supposed to be, because when I saw the number of states that were named there where the power outage affected, and I saw some states, I shook my head. I'm like, no, they are not supposed to be in this category. Because, and the reason is this, the gas that we are talking about to power these turbines are domiciled in this area. We've said it before, the subnationals are not making economic blueprint and plans that will enable them financially to become independent to a specific level where they can, because of the economic activities or because of the initiative that these subnationals have taken, some of the central government policies will be taking advantage of that and use those initiatives as a platform for them to ride on. Any subnational within the southern part of the country that is not putting into consideration the issue of gas and how these things can be fired and be taken to places that will need them for the purpose of business, most especially that when it comes to power, they are not thinking in the line that they are supposed to be thinking. For the fact that this Warri to Lagos aircraft pipeline that got, why? Because this is not the first time. Even though the last time it happened has been quite a while, but this is not the first time. Delta State, Rivers, Edo State, where there's a lot of protest because of the power outage, and the contiguous states, they are supposed to be enjoying power because of the facilities we have there. And the government...
Do they have a power plant in these states?
Well, they should set up one. What does it take to set up one? Fine, you say 10, 15 years. You say 10, 15 years for geometrics and all of that.
Because somebody, some group of people just stood and said, this is not going to work.
Oh,
not the building. It didn't take them 2 years to get it done.
Yes, of course. That's why I'm even saying that, look, the subnational government from these areas, they know they can play the game that will make the government, advance a free hand to them, irrespective of who is going to stand against them for it not to work. I remember vividly when someone gave a very, very exclusive write-up on how the different 6 geopolitical zones can take advantage of their environmental peculiarity to make power available for their vicinity and for their regions. And when they came to the Niger Delta, of course, gas was mentioned. When they went to the north, because of the sun and the desert area, they were talking about the solar system.
Wind.
The solar, the wind, and
water.
They talked about other peculiar areas with their specific areas of strength on how to provide electricity for their populace. Why are we not taking that advantage? And if you look at that, they become so backward economically, and they are looking at Lagos. Lagos has ventured into power. Now, give Lagos another 10, 15 years. I'm sure they will not only be almost independent in power, or they'll be doing exceedingly what they're currently doing now, and also feeding the contiguous states. And that will always continually lead to the economic expansion of these subnationals in this part. Why are others not taking advantage? This is a question that we should ask. And for the voting populace, these are the questions that we should be advancing to those whom we are electing into office. When we are asking, I know it has become a cliche, what is your manifesto? And you start reeling out everything that we want here as a people. We must also, begin to hold them account. In the United States or in the UK, if you are a rep and you are representing a specific area in parliament, you have an office in your constituency, and that office, there are specific days you will be on seat in that office, and you will entertain your constituents who are coming to lay one or two complaints and the other. And we know our people, you should not be going there for stomach infrastructure complaint, but to let them know that, look, you've been there, you are a member of the House of Reps or you're a member of Senate. You've been there for 16 years. You've been there for 20 years.
What development have you brought? What
development activity have you brought here that will sustain development? There is no power. What are you still doing there? We must be able to confront them. And we can confront them now that the police has been taken away from them and the, what's it called now? Yes, we can confront them, not violently, but in a way that we speak, in a way that we fearlessly speak to them.
But you see, the difference between those claims that you are referencing is the nature of the politics. In UK, if you're a member of Labour Party or Conservative or any other smaller party, you are subscribing and contributing to the party. Your rep don't come back to come and give you money to vote for him. In the US, if you're a member of Republican or Democrat, you are paying heavily to drive your party's agenda. And so in that case, you are able to hold political office holder accountable. But here, reverse is the case. For people to go to convention venue, the man who is contesting election, we need to drop money to mobilize people to go. For them to go out to queue to vote on election day, they have to be giving money to come out to come and vote.
To induce them to vote.
And those of you who do not collect money, you don't come out to vote.
Those of them.
So what does this mean? Is that you have ceded your power of accountability.
Is it seeded or sold?
The man who is paying the piper. So this is the narrative here, because you can't eat your cake and then want to have it back.
So you're saying that there's no accountability here?
So accountability will be very, very difficult, because who are you accountable to? After I have paid for my slot,